Hello and welcome. We are live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Joe Biden gaffes continue at the NATO summit mixes up. Kamala Harris as Donald Trump, as earlier called Ukrainian President Zelensky as Putin. Despite growing chorus to step aside, Joe Biden rebuts doubters, insists that he is going ahead with this re-election bid. Ukraine urges NATO to lift restrictions on targeting Russia. Zelensky calls it a game changer. China denounces stinging criticism in the NATO declaration. And in sports, 7th seed Jasmine Paolini becomes the first Italian woman to reach Wimbledon finals after defeating Donna Vekic to take on Barbora Krejcikova in this summit clash. All right, news in detail now. US President Joe Biden pledged long-term support for Ukraine on Thursday alongside NATO leaders and said that he has no reason to talk to Russian President Vladimir Putin. Right now, unless the Russian leader changes his behavior, Biden vowed that the United States cannot retreat from the world and said under his leadership, Washington will not walk away from support for Ukraine.
I'm dealing with Xi right now and direct contact with him. I have no good reason to talk to Putin right now. There's not much that he is prepared to do in terms of accommodating any change in his behavior.
Last year, the G7 nations committed to the declaration for Ukraine's long-term protection. Shortly after, 25 additional countries signed bilateral security agreements with Ukraine. Now, a year later, over 20 countries along with the European Union have completed and signed these agreements. At a news conference concluding the NATO summit, Biden said a strong NATO alliance is essential to American security. He also said NATO leaders and partners discussed the need for a new industrial policy among Western countries and how to boost the capacity, particularly of Europe and Japan, to produce their own weapon systems and would meet again. Biden also said that the Israel-Gaza war must end now, telling reporters his Gaza ceasefire framework had been agreed on by both Israel and Palestinian Islamist group Hamas, but added that there were still gaps to close.
For months, the United States has been working to secure a ceasefire in Gaza, to bring the hostages home, to create a path for peace and stability in the Middle East. 6 weeks ago, I laid out a detailed plan in writing. It was endorsed by the UN Security Council, the G7. That framework is now agreed on by both Israel and Hamas. So I sent my team to the region to hammer out the details. These are difficult, complex issues. There's still gaps to close, but we're making progress. The trend is positive. And I'm determined to get this deal done and bring an end to this war, which should end now.
And the NATO summit has wrapped up in Washington with billions of dollars more in aid for Ukraine and major support on air defenses. Several NATO allies have boosted their domestic spending on defense, showing how they are prioritizing security at tense times, particularly due to concern over Russia. At the same time, challenges to US President Biden's leadership overshadowed the end of the meetings. DD India's Caroline Malone reports from Washington.
Joe Biden, president of the NATO summit's host nation, had the final word on Thursday, describing the alliance as of critical importance to the US and transatlantic security. NATO allies focused on supporting Ukraine at this meeting, defending the country from Russia and China, who they say supplies infrastructure and tech support to the Kremlin. The Secretary-General of NATO, Jens Stoltenberg, said that the message from the alliance is clear about China's responsibility when it comes to enabling Russia's war. Ukraine and the threats posed by Russia and China are of increasing concern to NATO's Indo-Pacific partners, who see it as an existential threat to the region. The groupings are pushing back with investment in defence and against cyber attacks and misinformation. Well, as for Ukraine, there are F-16 fighter jets on the way and more air defence systems from the US. NATO will station a civilian representative in Kyiv going forward and move a command post to Germany, where they will coordinate the supply of weapons to Ukraine. The US is also sending cruise missiles to Germany for NATO defence. Well, at the end of the summit, Hungary's Prime Minister, who's just back from trips to Russia, Ukraine and China, decided to go to Florida to meet with Donald Trump, the Republicans' presumptive presidential nominee. Trump has claimed he can end the war in 24 hours, a claim that President Biden and other NATO leaders have pushed back on. Well, Ukraine would need the Russians to leave their territory before any chance of peace talks. Well, all of this, though, is happening at tumultuous times for President Biden, who's being challenged by even members of his own party who are concerned over his age and lack of mental sharpness, with some even calling for him not to run again in this year's election. That's despite a successful NATO summit in the United States. Caroline Malone in Washington reporting for DD India.
Now, China says it will never accept the unfounded accusations made against it at the NATO summit, that too over a phone call. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi dialed to his Dutch counterpart to reply to the message. Wang said China is willing to maintain contact with NATO on an equal footing and conduct exchanges on the basis of mutual respect, asking the military alliance to neither interfere with its internal affair nor challenge its interests. He then said China and NATO countries have different political systems and values, but this should not be a reason for NATO to instigate confrontation with China. And it continues unabatedly. Verbal gaffes are beginning to become a regular and intensely scrutinized feature of US President Joe Biden's speeches and press interactions. As calls within party grow for him to step aside from presidential race, Biden remains steadfast and firm, but the list is growing of those who are at unease with his continued candidacy.
Hey, buddy.
US President Joe Biden had a series of verbal slip-ups on Thursday alongside the NATO summit in Washington, an unfortunate development for the 81-year-old as he tries to move past concerns that he is too old to run for re-election. Biden mistakenly referred to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky as President Putin. As the comment drew gasps from those in the room, Biden corrected himself quickly.
And now I want to hand it over to the President of Ukraine, who has as much courage as he has determination. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin. President Putin. We're going to beat President Putin. President Zelensky. I'm so focused on beating Putin, we got to worry about it. Anyway, Mr. President.
I'm better.
You are a hell of a lot better.
During a news conference on Thursday evening, responding to a question about his confidence in Kamala Harris, Biden mixed up the names of Harris and his rival Trump.
I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president, but I think she was not qualified to be president.
Biden also struggled at the news conference to find the words chiefs of staff, mistakenly referring to the group of the country's top uniformed military leaders as commander-in-chief, the title he holds as president.
And so our military is working. I'm following the advice of my commander-in-chief, the chief of staff of the military, as well as the Secretary of Defense and our intelligence people.
Verbal gaffes are not unusual in the long political career of Biden, who overcame a childhood stutter. But there is closer attention on him amid the fallout from his dismal debate performance against Republican candidate Donald Trump last month. And with each word that is misspelled or every name that he exchanges, the chorus for him to withdraw is growing stronger. The list of dissidents in the party is steadily growing long. After the press conference, Democratic Congressman Jim Himes and Democratic U.S. Representative Eric Sorensen asked Biden to step aside from presidential race. Bureau Report, DT India.
And in a hush money case, Donald Trump's lawyer has urged judge to toss out his conviction because of the US Supreme Court ruling that presidents have at least some immunity from criminal charges, setting up a fresh fight with Manhattan prosecutors as his campaign to take back the White House heats up. In a court filing date July 10th, made public on Thursday, defense lawyers said the May 30th guilty verdict in the first ever criminal trial of a US president should be set aside following the US Supreme Court's ruling on presidential immunity. Justice Juan Merchan this month delayed Trump's sentencing by 2 months after defense lawyers said the justice's July 1st ruling that presidents cannot face criminal charges over official acts meant prosecutors should not have shown evidence from Trump's time in the White House at trial. And a lawyer for Alec Baldwin on Thursday rigorously questioned a police technician over her investigation of the Rust shooting that killed cinematographer Halyna Hutchins, suggesting agents were more interested in prosecuting Baldwin than finding the source of a live round that killed the film's cinematographer. On day 2 of the Baldwin's involuntary manslaughter trial, his lawyer Alex Spiro grilled a New Mexico crime scene technician over the search of prop supplier that the attorney alleged could have supplied 6 live rounds found on the Western movie set. Now, Japan has warned that China risks escalating tension with Taiwan with an increase in military exercises that appeared aimed in part at readying Beijing's forces for a possible invasion of the democratically governed island. Japan's annual assessment of security threats, including those posed by neighbors China, North Korea and Russia, comes as Taiwan closely monitors Chinese air and sea exercises, including one with an aircraft carrier in the nearby Pacific. Japan's 548-page assessment also highlighted China's plans to double its nuclear arsenal to more than 1,000 warheads by 2030. The drills are the latest in a series including maneuvers in the Taiwan Strait last year that a senior U.S. general said would be key to any invasion. And firefighters responded to a massive fire that destroyed a Philadelphia apartment complex. At least 50 people have been displaced by the fire, local media reported. The fire grew to a 4-alarm fire before firefighters were able to contain it around midnight. Residents have been evacuated and no deaths have yet been reported. The cause of the blaze is under the investigation. A wildfire burned at least 2,700 acres of land in Southern California. Firefighters battled to contain the blaze that has shown little signs of slowing down amid the state's peak fire season. A helicopter flew over the wildfire and dropped water in an attempt to contain it. 479 firefighters have been deployed to fight the Vista fire. Now, Nepal Prime Minister Pushpa Kamal Dahal is heading for his 5th round of vote of confidence motion amid the certainty to lose it. Dahal, the former Maoist rebel who entered mainstream politics after political change of 2006, is taking his 5th vote of confidence in less than 20 months in power. Majority-weighing parties in the Nepalese parliament have issued whip to its lawmakers to stand against the confidence motion set to be tabled in parliament by Prime Minister Pushpa Kamal Dahal. And in a tragic incident, 2 buses with dozen passengers went missing in Nepal's Trishuli River on Friday as the area is hit by landslides. According to Nepal police, a bus carrying 41 persons and the next bus, Angel Deluxe, on its way to Kathmandu from Birganj had 24 persons on board, including 7 Indians travelling in it. The chief district officer who is on the site said that the rescue workers have started working to clear the landslides. Nepal's Prime Minister Pushpa Kamal Dahal expressed grief over the incident with post via Platform X. He also said that government officials have been directed to take a swift action. Alright, still to come on this edition of DD India Live. The 2-day retreat of BIMSTEC member countries continues, aimed at bolstering cooperation among Bay of Bengal countries. In sports, England in strong position on day 3 of the first test. West Indies trailed by 171 runs. And preparations in full swing in Berlin as the German capital is all set to host the grand finale of Euro 2024.
What is happening to the link between the diaspora and Mother India, how they see India's rise, and what is the role of the diaspora in propelling India's rise.
See, being here firsthand, all the infrastructural changes, the talks about transformation, I feel very proud.
As a member of the diaspora, we think that India is a country that is rich in culture and at the same time its economic advancements and technology.
To bring this knowledge to the people there and to stimulate people on building relationships with each other and with India.
We just don't bring you the news as it unfolds, we get to the heart of the matter.
We don't just present facts, we demystify complex social, political and economic events.
We break stories that shape the world's present and future because you deserve the truth.
I am Tanvi Taneja from New Delhi.
I'm Ollie Barrett from London.
I'm Nick Harper from Washington, D.C.
Join us on DD India Global Monday to Friday at these times.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. India began hosting foreign ministers from the BIMSTEC member countries for a two-day retreat in the national capital on Thursday, aimed at bolstering cooperation among Bay of Bengal countries. The Bay of Bengal Initiative for Multi-Sectoral Technical and Economic Cooperation brings together 7 countries of South and Southeast Asia for multifaceted cooperation. The Ministry of External Affairs earlier said the retreat presents an opportunity for the group to discuss avenues to deepen cooperation in trade and connectivity. And amidst the row over alleged irregularities in national eligibility come entrance test this year, India's Union Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan on Thursday met some NEET aspirants at his residence and assured them that the government will take necessary measures. Whereas Central Bureau of Investigation has arrested Rakesh Ranjan, who is believed to be involved in the alleged paper leak, and taken him into custody for 10 days. Earlier, the Supreme Court adjourned the hearing of the petition seeking the cancellation of the NEET Undergraduate 2024 on Thursday until July 18th. And providing a great relief to Delhi's Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal, India's Supreme Court has granted him interim bail on Friday in a money laundering case by an enforcement directorate linked to the Delhi leaker policy. However, Kejriwal will remain in Tihar jail as he is currently being questioned by the Central Bureau of Investigation in a separate case. Kejriwal was arrested by ED on March 21st in connection with a money laundering probe relating to alleged irregularities in the now cancelled Delhi excise policy. And amidst rising terror incidents in Jammu and Kashmir, a high-level interstate coordination meeting between Border Security Force, Jammu and Kashmir Police, central agencies and Punjab Police was held in Kathua on Thursday. The conference was held to focus on enhancing border security and synergy between the two state police forces and the border guarding force. All right, some weather updates now. The India Met Department has predicted increased rainfall activity in north and northeast India, including East Uttar Pradesh, Delhi NCR and other regions in the coming days. The weather body has further issued an orange alert for heavy rainfall for Bihar and parts of Uttar Pradesh. The IMD indicated that the intensity of rainfall in Delhi is expected to increase in the coming days. Warnings have been issued due to expected heavy rainfall and rising water levels in the Yamuna River during the monsoon season. And as per the forecast, rainfall activity will remain active across various states until July 15th. Heavy rainfall activity is expected over Himalayan West Bengal, Sikkim, Bihar, Jharkhand and Odisha. Also, the IMD has issued an orange alert indicating heavy to very heavy rainfall for Mumbai on Friday and Saturday. As per the weather department, a monsoon trough and a cyclonic circulation has also developed over Mumbai, which has resulted in strong westerly winds. The flood situation in northeastern state of Assam has improved slightly due to reduced rainfall. No casualties were reported on Thursday, bringing the death toll to 83. Around 13.9 lakh people are still affected by the deluge. The water levels of Brahmaputra at some major points and tributaries are still flowing above the danger level. The famous Kaziranga National Park in Assam is facing its worst flood in the past 1 decade that has already led to the death of 174 animals, including 10 prize one-horned rhinos. And as heavy rainfall batters India's northern state of Uttarakhand, Badrinath National Highway has been blocked for over 60 hours in the city of Joshimath. Stranded vehicles and pilgrims await clearance efforts as local residents and businesses step up with meals. Indian Army have also extended support by setting up langars for pilgrims. Time now for some business updates. Global sales of electric vehicles rose by 13% in June, reflecting the growing consumer interest and adoption of cleaner transportation alternatives. In regions such as Europe, the uptake of EVs has been particularly strong, driven by stringent emissions, regulations and supportive policies. In the United States, the EV market is also gaining traction. Federal and state incentives, coupled with increasing investments in charging infrastructure and a growing range of available models, are driving consumers' interest. Unconcerned about the transfer of sensitive technology and G42's historic ties to China, Republican lawmakers asked the Biden administration for an intelligence assessment of Microsoft's $1.5 billion investment in UAE-based artificial intelligence firm G42. The Republicans said they want the briefing on the deal announced in April before it advances to a second phase involving the transfer of export-restricted semiconductor chips and model weights, sophisticated data that improves an AI model's ability to emulate human reasoning. Japanese companies foreseeing a growing surplus in stocks of liquefied natural gas as their demand for the fuel wanes in coming years are scrambling to invest in regional markets to provide potential outlets to sell gas. As more nuclear plants restart and renewable energy gains momentum, Japan's LNG imports are at the lowest in over a decade, spurring companies to turn to Asia to unload supplies contracted during past market shocks. And in sports, we'll start with tennis. Wimbledon Barbora Krejcikova returned to a Grand Slam singles final 3 years after her only triumph with a stirring Wimbledon comeback on Thursday that set up a meeting with Italian Jasmine Paolini, who continued to break new ground at the All England club. Despite a wealth of major doubles success, Krejcikova came into the contest with Elena Rybakina as a lower-seeded underdog. However, she kept a cool head after a sluggish start against the big-hitting Kazakh to prevail 3-6, 6-3, 6-4. Meanwhile, 7th seed Paolini earlier became the first Italian woman to reach the final after overcoming Croatian Donna Vekic 2-6, 6-4, 7-6 in a thriller, continuing her extraordinary year after last month's French Open runner-up finish. And preparations are building in Berlin as the German capital prepares to host the grand finale of Euro 2024. Sunday's game will see Spain take on England in a battle for one of football's most coveted trophies. From Berlin, DD India correspondent Trent Murray has more details on the match build-up.
Well, the clock is well and truly counting down now to this huge football clash on Sunday between England and Spain. Already, the German capital is abuzz as football fans begin to arrive here from all over Europe, but in particular Spain and England, as you might imagine. We know that this game is already sold out, 75,000 seats at Berlin Olympic Stadium. For fans that can't snag a spot at the game itself, well, there's many public viewing zones, not just here, but right across the country. I'm actually here right now at the Brandenburg Gate viewing zone. We do expect this to reach capacity on Sunday, 30,000 people here, as well as just behind me there at the Parliament, there is a second viewing zone. The police here are preparing for a big day. Security, obviously a huge concern, making sure that we don't see those scenes of ugly violence and hooliganism. We did see some of that, unfortunately, in Dortmund overnight when England played the Netherlands. Authorities here are hoping to not have a repeat of that. Also, interestingly, of course, being Germany, there is a discussion about beer. Now, why am I saying that? Well, the British government, the embassy here, has put out a warning to England fans that beer in Germany is actually stronger than back in England, and has advised people to drink responsibly. Of course, when you combine strong beer with these summer temperatures, it can be a bit of a recipe for disaster, both from a health perspective and also a security perspective. It's just one of many aspects of this huge football tournament, but overall, the feeling is one of excitement. There is a buzz here as this crucial match between Spain and England gets ready to kick off 9 p.m. local time right here in Germany. Trent Murray for DD India, Berlin.
Football to cricket now. In James Anderson's farewell test, England need 4 more wickets to secure an innings win over West Indies inside 3 days. Anderson, Gus Atkinson and Ben Stokes shared 6 wickets on second day evening. The hosts were dominant with the bat, scoring at more than 4 runs per over across their first innings, and then turned the screw with the ball to close in on a 1-0 lead. At 79 for 6 in their second innings, West Indies is currently trailing by 171 runs. The match also holds a special status as it marks the end of a 188 test career of world's most prolific fast bowler. England's James Anderson, who is only pacer in the game's history to take 700 test wickets, it will be worth getting in place quickly to catch the last moments of Anderson's glorious career, because it could be a quick kill. Well, that's all for this edition of DD India Live, but do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. From all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India Live.